Well, second time's the charm. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Quiet Kanku. I can't believe I've done it again. I recorded the entire video, and guess what? I was using the wrong source that didn't have audio capture.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So we're gonna try this again. So we're gonna talk about Homebrew versus books. Bite-sized a car in the Quiet Kanku Discord server, link down in the description. You should totally join and add in your own debate topic so we can talk about it on later videos. Bite-sized car said, do you think Homebrew should be allowed in D&D, or should people just stick to the base game? My interpretation of this, of base game, just means anything that is like official content for D&D. So that'd be like Monster Manual, Player's Handbook, DM Guide, and any of the edition, Tasha's, Xanathar's, anything. I'm considering base game as anything that is official content, not considered homebrew by the general community. So what that would mean is something like Blood Hunter would be considered homebrew despite it being a more popular homebrew, as an example. My opinion, just to give my opinion first and foremost before reading the responses, I think homebrew is amazing, within reason. And I'll get into what I mean by that after I read the responses, which there are only two, and I'll read them both at the same time because they're relatively short. We have Piana 2, which again, I may be butchering that, I'm so sorry. Homebrew is fucking awesome, followed up by Gamer Callie, which says homebrew is pretty great. I agree. I think homebrew is really amazing. It's so cool. It's so fun. There is a problem though. We do have a homebrew problem. And I think it's pretty simple what it is. Homebrew, while very amazing, tends to be, if not properly balanced, very game breaking. I say that as somebody who uses a lot of homebrew. My entire setting is homebrew, and the current setting that I'm working on, which will come after, Cerulean, I'm creating languages, I'm creating cultural practices, and a whole new pantheon. I'm building a world from the ground up so that it is practically alive by the time I run the game. With all of that said, and also being a player who uses homebrew when allowed, I love homebrew. But the problem with homebrew is it can be very unbalanced. A great example of this is a weapon that I used with one of my characters that I played. His name was Wolfgang Harlequin. Some of you who've been around for a while or can see some of the very old D&D videos that I did not DM may remember him. He was a paladin, so he had smites, he was very powerful, very strong. That was his whole thing. Lots of damage. Well, he had a weapon called the, well, in universe it was called something else, but the homebrew name of it was the Crusher. I found it online, it looked very cool. It essentially allowed him to do an additional damage dice of damage automatically. Now this was a Warhammer, so for example, one-handed would be a d8. This weapon did 2d8. Two-handed would be a d10. His did 2d10. It was also a +3 weapon. So it did a lot of damage. Combine that with the fact that he was a higher level paladin. He also was an Oathbreaker paladin. Other things piled on there. He did so much fucking damage across so many different damage types. The thing that was so great about it was that, but if you start to think about it, it's really powerful. One more thing that the weapon could do, it was kind of like Mjolnir in a way. You could throw it, and it had a pretty short range, but you could throw it, and it would come back. Again, kind of like Mjolnir, but without the lightning effect. It was a very fun weapon. incredibly fun to mess with. I loved it as a player, but like going up against enemies, they had to be beefed up pretty hard. So all of that aside, sounds awesome. It sounds so awesome, and as a player, it was so fun, and I loved it. But again, it all comes back to the fact that with all of that, it was so powerful. And as a DM, I can only imagine what that was like to try to balance. I can only imagine what that was like. And I do feel a bit guilty. Because trying to balance for a character like that, you sometimes leave other characters in the dust. For example, for my game Iadithis, I have some players who are pretty powerful, and I have some characters that are pretty powerful, and some characters that are not. That my players play. That is just inherently how that power dynamic goes, and so I have to balance for that when I'm creating encounters. And if I balance incorrectly, it could either be too easy, or one of them could die. That is just how it goes. And in fact, we saw that happen recently, where one of them died, and it was because I balanced a little improperly. Now, part of it was also for narrative reasons, and I did when I saw the signs of what was happening, I kind of pushed it in a certain direction because I thought it would be narratively satisfying, and I think it was. But definitely one of those things where I worry about not balancing correctly, and it's because certain things with Homebrew can make that harder. Because balancing by the books is inherently easier. Because if you're looking at the challenge rating of a monster and doing the math in your head of how that works, and going off of what can be done by the base game, while it's still not perfect, it's not a perfect system, it's a little bit easier to balance. When you start adding things like the Crusher Warhammer that my character Wolfgang had, or I can't think of another good example. That is the best example I can think of. I'm sorry. Let me let my cat out of the room. Okay, she didn't want to leave. We're good. So when you get into certain things like that, like the Crusher, it makes it a lot harder to balance, because now as a DM, it's not like, okay, what is a normal amount of damage they'll deal based on this? It's, okay, now I have to add numbers. But I don't want to add too many numbers, because if I add too many numbers, then I'll kill this other guy who's significantly weaker. And some people, I know some people in the comments may say, well, then give everybody powerful weapons. I could do that, yes. I could. You are 100% correct. I could just give everybody powerful items. But then you start to get in the realm of, okay, these characters are really strong now, and now all the enemies they're going up against have to also have these incredibly powerful items, which makes you start to go, okay, or at least somebody like me who thinks about these things, okay, all these people have super powerful items now, so how does that balance in terms of the world? Because, for example, the Warhammer that my character had, and or we'll not even talk about him, we'll talk about like some of the other characters, these are god tier items. These are like mythic level weapons or armor. And so if everybody has those, where did they all come from? What's the lore behind all of these? You know, it just starts to build and build and build. And when running a homebrew game in a homebrew world, yes, you can come up with all of that. But when there's so much already to keep track of, do you want to have to do that? I think it's a lot better to use homebrew. But I think my least favorite thing, honestly, is homebrew items. I like homebrew classes, subclasses, races. I like all of that. A homebrew setting, amazing. My least favorite homebrew thing, I think, is homebrew items. It gets very complicated very quickly. I think having some is okay, like if they're already pre-made in the world. But if a player comes to me and asks for a homebrew item, I tend to be a little more hesitant. A little bit. I'm not entirely against it, and there are many instances where I will give them out, but I'm definitely more hesitant than with anything else. Because the classes and stuff, we can change them later. I mean, there's more building over time with that sort of thing, or with a subclass. With a weapon, it's just you're being given a gun, like a 50 cal sniper up against a sword. It's it just gets a little ridiculous. It can. Now, that's just my feelings on it. A little rambly, I'm sorry for that, but again, just to reiterate, just very simply, I think homebrew is good. I think it's great. But homebrew items is where I start to get iffy, just to sum it up. I think that's really all I have. If you enjoyed me talking about this, I plan to keep doing this every week. We're going to have a new debate topic every week. We have some built up in the server. That's what I'm going over currently. Once I run out of those, I'll start making my own until people start posting them again. Which, if you want to post your own, you can go ahead and join the Discord down in the description. The Quiet Kenku is the name of the server, and post your own debate topics. We also have a pretty active community over there, many of which are artists. So if you're an artist yourself, you can go share that over there. We also have a place where you can share, fun clips, either from my streams and videos or your own. We have a place where you can post library stuff. That'd be like if you write a story. We also have a place where you can post your pets, your food that you make, D&D related stuff such as your own homebrew. We have a whole forum for homebrew. So if you have anything interesting you want to share, you can post it over there. That rhymed. Aha. Anyway, good night everybody. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you around.